factors are things you multiply together to get an answer. So if you're looking at 15x, 5, 3, and x are the factors of 15x. In algebra, something called the GCF, the greatest common factor. Let me show you some examples before I try to define that. The greatest common factor of 10 and 15 is 5. It's the largest number that you can divide out. If you were looking at 3x and 6, the only thing I can divide out of a 3x and a 6 is 3. The greatest common factor of 2x and 5x is just the x. 2x is 2 times x, 5x is 5 times x. There's no numbers that go into both 2 and 5, so it's just the x. The greatest common factor of 10x squared and 2x, well, the largest number I can divide out of a 10 and a 2 is 2, and the largest power I can take out when this one has an x squared and this one has x is just one single x. When you're factoring and you're just going to be pulling out a GCF, what you're doing is you're rewriting this as a multiplication problem. So the 10x plus 15 is an answer. What was multiplied together to get that? So you start with, what is the largest number that goes into the 10 and the 15? Well, that would be the 5. And what is the largest power of x? Well, 15 doesn't have an x on it, so nothing. There's no power of x that'll work. So the answer here is going to be the greatest common factor is just 5. So what are we multiplying that by? In order to get 10x, you need to multiply that 5 by a 2. And to get that 10x, that needs to be an x with that 2. So 5 times 2x is the 10x. To get the 15, we have to multiply that 5 times a 3. All right, we're going to do the same thing. I made the numbers the same on purpose just so you can see the pattern here. So on a question like this one, 10x squared plus 15x, you have to think something differently. What is the largest number and variable that is going to go into 10x squared and 15x? So 5 is still going to be the number, but now look at the x's. This is x times x. X squared has 2 x's multiplied together. The 15 has just 1 x multiplied with it, so I can take out a single x. Now you have to figure out what they're being multiplied by. Well, in order to get the 10, that's a 2, and in order to get the x squared, when you're already multiplying by 5x, is going to be the x. I didn't mention we're talking about distributive property here. We're basically doing distributive property backwards, if you can visualize that. Now, what do we need to get this 15x? I just need a 3 here. 5x times 3 is 15x. It may not be useful for everybody, but for me, I really need to multiply back to make sure I got what I intended to get. All right, 10x cubed and 15x. Well, I know I got the 5 because I didn't change the numbers. What is the largest power of x here? This one is x cubed. It has 3 x's multiplied together. This one just still has 1. Well, it's going to be the 1. And what are we multiplying by? Well, I need to get a 10x cubed, so I need the 2. And I already have an x, so I need to have an x cubed as an answer, so that means this needs to be x squared. And I still just need the plus 3 here. Not terribly tricky on that one. There's another way of factoring called factoring by grouping. Watch this. I'm training your brain. I'm going to take 4 plus 5 times the quantity 2 plus 3. And yeah, I made it simple. I know what that is. That's 9 times 5, so that's 45. Okay, put that aside. Now I'm going to do it the way we would multiply this out. I am going to do distributive property. So I'm going to take 4 times 2 plus 3, and I'm going to take 5 times 2 plus 3. Then I'm going to do distributive property again. And we get 4 times 2, 4 times 3. And 5 times 2, 5 times 3. And work that all out. You get 8 plus 12 plus 10 plus 15. We're going to play with this a little bit more because in algebra class, they're going to give you a polynomial. It's going to have x's and stuff in it, and it's going to have 4 terms, and they're going to say factor by grouping. I'm proving to you that it works and why it works. Let's just make sure that this does equal 45 before I go on. So 8 plus 12 is 20, and 10 plus 15 is 25. Yep, that does. Okay, let me pull this guy out with the 4 terms. The steps for factoring by grouping, which I'll go over again, you're just watching right now, is to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. And then you're supposed to pull out a GCF. Well, the GCF, the largest number that goes into 8 and 12, is 4. So we're taking out a 4, and we would have to have a 2 and a 3 in order to get the 8 and the 12. The largest number you can take out of a 10 and 15, no accident, I just did that 14 times. So it's 5, and that would be 2 and 3. Now, if you look, the 2 and the 3, as a term in parentheses, as a group, shows up in both. So I can pull that out. And then that got multiplied times the 4 plus the 5. This is called factoring by grouping. This is the thing that you're going to do in algebra. Factor by grouping. Now I threw the x's in. I'm going to do it forwards first, and then I'm going to pull out the 4 terms, and we'll do it backwards. We're going to take the 4x times these, but times the 2x plus 3. Then we're going to do distributive property. We get 8x squared, because x times x is x squared, plus 12x, plus 10x, plus 15. In an algebra class, when you're doing factoring by grouping, they're going to start by giving you those 4 terms in that polynomial. This would be the beginning. Your goal is to do all of this backwards and get back to where we started. Group the first 2 terms, and you group the last 2 terms. Now we're going to pull GCF out of the first term. The largest number that can come out is a 4. The largest x is x. And on the inside, we're going to get 2, because 4 times 2 is 8. And I need another x to get that x squared. Plus, I already have a 4x, so I just need a 3 to get the 12. The x is already there. All right, now we're going to pull the GCF out of the back 2 terms. I pull out the 5. I end up with the 2x there. 5 times 2x is 10x, and 5 plus 3. Now look, we have a common factor in both of these, and that is 2x plus 3, so I'm going to pull that out and copy it. And what did that get multiplied by? There's the 4x plus 5, and you just copy it down. That's factor by grouping. Okay, let's do it for real. Here are the steps for factoring by grouping. Separate the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. All right. Group them up. They are now separate. Check. All right, pull the GCF out of each group. All right, out of this front end, we start with that, so I'm covering this up sort of because I want you not to look at that right now. Just look at these 2 terms. What's the largest number that I can take out of 14 and 21? 7. And the largest x I can take out is just 1x. This is x squared, but that one just has 1. Now what would you have to multiply this by to get the 14x squared? Well, I need a 2, and I would need an x, and I would need a plus 3. 2x plus 3. I did that again. I like repetition. I didn't even do that one on purpose. All right, so we have now factored the first grouping. Ignore it. Go to the second grouping. The largest number I can take out of a 4 and a 6 is a 2. I cannot take out any x's because the 6 doesn't have an x. So we end up with 2x plus 3. Big hint, if these things don't match, you did something wrong. So you're pulling out the wrong stuff. These 2 are supposed to match. And we just finished that. Now write the answer as 2 binomials multiplied. This is all official language. Binomials, well, we know one of them is going to be 2x plus 3 because it appears in both. So you write the 2x plus 3, and then the second one is going to be the 7x plus 2. Nifty. That's factoring by grouping. And we just wrote the answer. Now you know that. Let me show you one that I think is better. You're going to have to go with your teacher here, but factoring with boxes, I use the boxes for multiplying, and we're going to use the boxes for factoring too. The boxes make more sense to me, but you know, I like boxes. All right, first thing you do is you copy all the terms of your polynomial into the boxes in order going from left to right, top to bottom. So 14x squared goes in the first box, 21x goes in the second box, 4x goes in the next box, and 6 goes in the last box. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want you to factor sideways. just look at these two terms, the 14x squared and the 21x. What goes into both of those? The 7x. We already know what the answer is going to be because I just did it, but I'm doing it a different way, so I'm not using a different problem. I want to show you that it works. Now factor sideways the 4x plus 6, and we get the 2. Now factor up. Look, from the 14x squared and the 4x, what's the largest number you can take out of both of those? I'm looking at the 14 and my brain goes 7, but that's not true. 7 doesn't go into 4, so it's just the 2. And each of them have an x that I can pull. And 21x and 6, what can I take out of that? A 3. Now before you do anything else, check your multiplication boxes. What I mean, 7x times 2x is 14x. 7x times 3 is 21x. We did that right. 2 times 2x, is that 4x? And is 2 times 3, 6? It's like a little multiplication table. Once you have it, the side is a binomial and the top is a binomial, and then you just write them. So this is 2x plus 3 times 7x plus 2. That goes a lot faster if you don't have to explain it to someone, I promise. I'll show you again. Let's fill in the terms. X squared minus 6x plus 3x minus 18. Now we factor. The largest thing I can take out of an x squared and a negative 6x is just an x. The largest thing I can take out of a 3x and a minus 18 is a 3. Factor up. X squared 3x, I can only take an x out of both of those. Negative 6x and a negative 18. All these negatives, that's a big clue that you better probably take out a negative 6. And if you're not sure about things, do what I just said. Go back and check your boxes before you go on. Is x times x squared? Yes. Is x times negative 6 negative 6x? Yes. Is 3 times x 3x? Yes. And is 3 times negative 6 negative 18? Yes. You're ready to write your answer. X minus 6 times x plus 3. These binomials can be switched, it doesn't matter. And just when you think you have it, I'm going to show you one where something goes wrong, because I want you to know the boxes are really nifty, but they're not foolproof. So you got to be careful. So 6x squared minus x minus 36x and a plus 6. Factor to the side. The only thing I can take out of these two is just a single x. Factor to the side. What can come out of a negative 36 and a 6? Well, I know I can take a 6 out of that. Factor up. And, well, what goes out of a 6 and a 36 and an x squared and an x? Well, that's 6x. Now check your math. Something just went wrong. 6x times x is 6x squared. That is true. But 6x times 6 is a positive 36, not a negative 36. So one of these 6's has to be negative. It can't be the top one because I need a positive in this box because that's positive 6x squared. So it must be this one. And you can go in now and just change the sign. That's totally legal. You don't have to get it right from the very first number you write down. Go back and fix it. Now double check. Is negative 6 times 6x equal to negative 36x? Yes, it is. Okay, so now we keep going here. What do you want to take out? Here I have a negative x. Well, if you're not sure what goes out this way, at least look at this side. I have x over here, and I have to multiply this x times something to get a negative x. That has to be negative 1. So technically I'm factoring up, but I was a little stuck on this one, so I went back and looked at it this way. X times negative 1 is negative x, and negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. Boxes give you a way to double check your work that you may not see when you're factoring by grouping with the parentheses. Again, it's different for each person. You'll pick the way you like, and you also have to follow what your teacher in real life wants you to do. Let's write the answer. We have 6x minus 1 times x minus 6.